This week I cross into Singapore from Malaysia and see what you can do on a short layover in this island state. Morning everyone, welcome to this video and welcome to the amazing sights of Johor Bahru in the background from my hotel, the Z Hotel. If you watched last week's video and the videos before that, you'll know why I've ended up here on the southern tip of Malaysia in Johor Bahru, and that's because flight cancellations combined with accommodation options being sparse because of Malaysia Day and the airfares being ridiculously expensive has meant that I've had to cut short my trip to Borneo and will be flying from Singapore back to Europe tonight. Today though, I'm going to be going through the causeway border, the land border between Malaysia and Singapore. So in a few minutes I'll be leaving the hotel and going to something called Johor CIQ, Customs Immigration Quarantine, where there is a Malaysian passport check to leave Malaysia and airport style security check. I then think I need to get on a bus to take me across to Singapore to Woodlands border checkpoint, where I'll then get Singaporean approval to enter the country, then get on another bus deeper into Singapore, where I'll drop my bag off at something called Bounce, which seems to be convenience stores where you can drop off your bags for the day. And I will use the rest of this video to see what you can do in Singapore in a day before I head back to the airport for the flight tonight. And then I will do a separate video on Finnair's economy class, which will be coming next week probably, and you'll see what that's like. So let's check out of this hotel soon and work out how we get across the border into Singapore. It's really windy and really noisy on the way to the checkpoint building today. But the wind is quite refreshing because it's currently 39 degrees Celsius and the humidity is something like 93%. So I was being quoted the equivalent of £15 for a taxi for a 5-minute journey, or it's a 16-minute walk according to Google Maps. So being from the north of England, I don't like spending money when I don't have to, so I've decided to walk. I might be regretting that when I get to the place if I'm dripping with sweat. But I don't think it's too far from here. So I'm through passport control in Malaysia. You then come to passport system coming into Woodlands in the Singapore checkpoint was very efficient, I think is the word. If the scanner self-scanned the passports, if it didn't scan within 5 seconds, somebody would come over and start typing something into the machine to let you through. And the queues are moving really quickly. Now I need to go and get another bus into Singapore. So I'm now in Singapore. It took me over 90 minutes to get from Woodland MRT station, which was a lot longer than I thought. I've just dropped my bag off at the Bounce U-Mart shopping place and got myself a fresh squeezed orange juice from the machine on the side of it. I only have about 3 hours before I need to head to the airport now, so I don't think we're going to get as much seeing as I thought. But I need some food. So I'm in Little India at the minute, so I'm going to try and find a highly rated Indian restaurant that is supposedly quite cheap as well. So I will try and find that using Google Maps. So it seems to be a very hipster area, Little India. Chinese tour groups everywhere. And skyscrapers everywhere as well. So this time in Singapore, I don't think I've got time to explore the Marina Bay area or the Orchard or any of the other areas other than Little India, because I need to make sure I'm at the airport in plenty of time. It is really hot and the tall buildings are just trapping the heat, so it's even hotter. There's construction happening everywhere in Singapore. We're in Little India. A lot of the buildings are built in the colonial times. There's a temple across the road. So this is the heart of Little India. lights take ages to change. What the locals seem to do is stand in the shade and then all bolt across the road as soon as the green man comes on. There's a peculiar mix of architecture in this part of Singapore. You have what I would say was British colonial style. With modern 1970s concrete structures. And then Chinese, Malay type wooden houses. I think this just symbolises how Singapore was built. When it was a British colony, the Straits colony, the British government brought over a lot of Chinese and Indian migrants to work in Singapore and build up the colony. And most people who've got Singaporean residency now are descended from those migrants. And I think you can see that in the streets. A lot of the street names have got British names, but the buildings are colonial style. And the faces of people are Indian, Chinese, Malay, symbolising all of the different cultures that have come together in Singapore. So this is the financial centre of Singapore. I've got time for a quick stop and I wanted to head to the Raffles Hotel just to see what it's like. Lots of Europeans in really expensive clothing walking around here. So this is where the money is in Singapore. You've got Bank of Singapore, BNP Paribas, HSBC, all of the big brand banks here, and lots of service departments as well in skyscrapers. That's the headquarters of TikTok, I think. Just stumbled across the most luxurious hotel in Singapore. So this is where you need to be in Singapore if you've got lots of money. It's all happening here. There's a lot more people here than I've seen anywhere else in the city since I got here. This is probably a better view, but there's gates everywhere stopping people from actually getting close to the water, and lots of people in gowns and wedding dresses everywhere. So that's the Fullerton Hotel, also one of the top 5-star hotels in the world. This was built during the colonial times as one of the properties occupied by government officials. That's the famous Merlion. The iconic site of Singapore there in one shot. But I don't think I'm going to get to Raffles Hotel. This place is a lot bigger than you would think. The roads just seem to go on forever. And the MRT goes to a lot of places, but it doesn't seem to connect the main sites to anything. There's long distance walks in the hot weather from each MRT stop, from what I can figure out. Either that or I've taken a wrong turning somewhere. Because I came out at Raffles Place MRT stop and Google Maps is telling me it's a 45-minute walk away to the Raffles Hotel. So I might have to turn back, get my luggage and head for the airport soon. So I've just been walking here. There's some weird water feature on the floor. I don't quite know what that is. But there's also the audio from Formula 1 playing in the background. There's no screens that I can see. And the races are being held in, so I don't quite know. Well, I don't know where I am. This must be where they do the Formula 1 races here in Singapore. So this is the central concert hall here in Singapore. I don't have any particular facts about it, but I'm assuming it was designed by some world-renowned architect at some point. I can't figure out where you get across the road here. There's just gates all along and nowhere to cross. I'm assuming the Grand Prix, the Formula 1 is here soon because everything's shut off.
Is able to be used, particularly as uncomfortable as that may be for a little bit of pressure on the horse is being held by only being a second behind Russell.
So this is the memorial to the civilians killed by the Japanese when they occupied Singapore between 1942 and 45. When the Japanese occupied Singapore in the Second World War, they made a lot of the locals into essentially slaves. The local women were abused, the children were indoctrinated, a lot of the British colonials were killed or put in a concentration camp, which is now the location of Changi Airport. Changi was one of the most notorious concentration camps in Japanese occupation of Singapore. On the left you have something called the NCO Club, which was for the non-commissioned British officers. We're now on the way to the airport with the last MRT of the day. And I should get access to the Marhaba Lounge at Singapore Airport because of my One World sapphire status, and I need a shower, so I hope they have showers, and I need to change my clothes after walking around in, I think it's currently 39, feels like 42 Celsius, so I can't wait to get a shower and a change of clothes before the flight. Terminal 1 of Singapore Airport. It's quite busy. I'm trying to find the Finnair desk, and it seems like it's right at the other side of the airport. I checked in online, was told that I had to collect a physical boarding pass for some reason. So all checked in. When I checked in online, they didn't issue me a boarding pass. Apparently that's because I booked the flights less than 24 hours before departure, and they had to ask me some questions, whether I was a terrorist or a drug dealer, which I'm not either. So I'm now going through immigration and passport control, and I'll see you in the Mahaba Lounge. So no security to get into this central area, so I'm assuming security is at the gate before boarding, which means I would need to leave the lounge earlier than at most airports, because I don't know how long the security line might take. But let's try and find the Mahaba Lounge. The Mahaba Lounge in Singapore Airport. It is really busy. There isn't much on offer in terms of food. There's rice, some meat curries, and bits of salad stuff, and a bit of alcohol and cartons of apple and orange juice. Well, not much else. There isn't enough seating for the amount of people in here, and the tables are constantly got flakes left on them, so it's not a great place. It probably would have been better in the main terminal with everyone else. I've heard good things about Singapore Airport. This lounge is not living up to that reputation. I had a shower, but the shower pressure was strange, and somebody knocked on the door at 5 minutes in and said, right, it's time to come out now. So you have a limit on how long you can spend in the shower here as well. It's a far cry from the Al Safwa Lounge in Doha. I'll be going to board the Finnair flight in about 30 minutes. I don't know what gate it's at yet, it hasn't been announced. But the fact that we're about an hour and a half before departure and the gate hasn't been announced suggests it might be delayed. But we will see. I'll include a quick few clips of the Mahaba Lounge, but there's not much to see really. It's just a standard contract lounge. This is an economy comfort seat on this Finnair A350. It comes with some really cheap headphones that were absolutely rubbish. The screen is quite small, but there was quite a good selection of series and movies, and a live action camera underneath the plane, which was good to watch as we started to taxi and take off. The seat had a movable headrest with wings that you could pull across to make it slightly more comfortable. And this is the meal that we got. It's definitely an economy meal. A really small box of hot something and a banana that was almost frozen. A small salad in a box and a bread roll. Welcome to a deadly quiet Helsinki airport after a 14-hour flight from Singapore. It's 6 AM local time and there's hardly anyone here. The whole terminal has maybe 50 people at most in it currently. It's quite a big airport. I've just walked to the gate from the arrivals section of the airport. The sign said 5-minute walk, it's taken me 20. I'm now going to find the Finnair lounge and spend an hour and a half in there before I need to walk back to the gate for my flight back to Manchester. I think it's this way. I think the airport's just opening up. A lot of the shops are still shut. What did I think of the Finnair flight in economy? Well, I was actually sat in an economy comfort seat because of my One World Sapphire status. Usually these seats cost about €70, but I got it for free because of the status. And it felt like I had more leg room than the premium economy passengers did. I mean, 14 hours is in any economy seat's not going to be great, but it was okay. The entertainment's a bit limited, the food portions are tiny, but it was an overnight flight. I didn't get any sleep, but most people did, so I guess it's fine. And and it cost me 40,000 Avios plus about £68, so it's not too bad, and that includes the connection to Manchester as well in a couple of hours time. So I'm in the Finnair lounge now in the non-Schengen part of the airport, having a bit of breakfast. I think I've got about an hour and a half here. This lounge is busier than the rest of the airport, so a lot of people are either flying business class or they have status to get in here. There's lots of seats though. It's quite a well designed lounge. It's got obviously a Nordic theme. There's a spa and a sauna in it somewhere, but I can't find that. And there's this section with the food and drinks, and then a bigger seating section which I'll show you before I leave. But I'm going to spend an hour or so here and then head to the gate for the flight to Manchester. The flight that I shouldn't have been taking if things had gone to plan in Borneo, but they didn't, so I'm here. But I've got to experience a new airline, Finnair, and a new airport, and got to go to Singapore, which I didn't plan to do, so swings and roundabouts really, isn't it? But I'll show you around the rest of the lounge in a bit. I'm just going to relax for a bit after the long flight. So yeah, just keep tuned, keep watching. I just want to talk to you about how I paid for this flight. So don't forget, I booked this flight around 24 hours before flying. The cash prices of flights from Singapore to Manchester, there was a Lufthansa for 692, I think, but it only had a 1 hour connection in Frankfurt, which is not enough. The next one was direct with Singapore Airlines for £1,690. This Finnair one, if I'd have paid in cash, so Singapore to Helsinki, Helsinki to Manchester, would have cost £2,112. I paid 40,000 Avios, plus about £69. That works out at just over £400 if you value an Avios at 1 pence or more. So as for a last minute flight, I think paying with Avios was the best deal available. If business seats had been available on this flight, that would have cost 80,000 Avios plus about 130-ish pounds, which I think is still a good deal, because the business class flights, the cheapest cash fare was 5,600 and something. If it's 80,000 Avios, it's about £900, give or take a few pounds either way, which for a last minute flight deal is not bad if you pay with Avios. So I think I've got a good deal. I wish I hadn't had to do this. I wish everything had gone to plan in Borneo at this point in time. I'd be in the jungle trying to find orangutans, but I'm not. I'm sat in the Helsinki business class lounge here in Helsinki Vantaa Airport. But we are where we are. I'll be flying home in about 45 minutes. I don't think I'll get to film much on that flight, just like on the past one, because I have an aisle seat again. That's one of the downsides of booking a flight 24 hours before flying. Most of the seats have already been chosen by people, and you're left with the ones that people didn't want. I got lucky on the one from Singapore to here because I got the last economy comfort seat, which, as I've said, was probably better than premium economy in terms of legroom. But on the flight from Helsinki to Manchester, I got the last seat on the plane. It's a full flight, and I'm somewhere in the middle on an aisle seat, so I don't think I'll get to film much. It's really cold in Helsinki this morning. A big shock to the system after the temperatures in Asia, and really, really foggy as well. You couldn't see anything out of the windows when we were landing. But yeah, I'll finish up in the lounge and then head to the gate, I guess, back to Manchester. So it's time to head to the gate here in Helsinki Airport. It's about 5 to 8 in the morning, and it's still deserted.
Your attention please.
To that sign, we're currently experiencing collie, whatever that is. You can get a pizza from a box. I had a quick look in the duty free, and the prices are probably 4 times higher than you would pay in most of Europe. Really foggy outside. So I've been lied to again. I was told it's a 5-minute walk to gate 47 from the lounge. Definitely not 5 minutes. So welcome on board the 737 flight to Manchester. Not much happened on this flight, really uneventful. Legroom was tight and the plane was full of Chinese students returning to University of Manchester. But I will end the video here. I hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Leave me a comment. What would you do in Singapore in just a few hours? Thanks again, and stay tuned for the next series where we are going to somewhere really exciting.